Good afternoon, it is 4 PM, it is Thursday here in the UK, which means one thing and one thing only. It is time for the Etch Play weekly live show. My name is Adam Burt and I'm joined today for the news segment by Ben Joy.
Yo,
You alright?
how you doing?
I'm good.
I'm good. Oh, we did that awkward thing where we both asked each other if we're good at the same time.
That's
and
okay.
responded at the same time.
The important thing is we're both good. And we're both good and we've both got lots of news to talk about. So we'll do the news and then we've got some Among Us gameplay to come for you later. And stick around because later in the show, Dan Thomas is joining the stream to talk about authenticity and engaging with gamers online. We're opening that Pandora's box. We're cracking it right open.
Yeah.
Let's get started with some news, shall we? It's been
Let's do it.
been a pretty busy week. First up, Amazon have announced Luna. This is a streaming service with its own new controller. Looks like the Switch Pro controller. It's only available in the US at this time. It streams at 1080 60, at least that's the claim, with 4K coming soon. Games on there including Metro Exodus, Control, Blasphemous, Bloodstained, Resident Evil 7, and unlike Stadia, and more like Game Pass, I guess, there's no a la carte games. You subscribe to sections or channels, kind of like Prime Video, and that gets you access to all the games in that channel, so you don't buy games individually. It's $5.99 for the basic channel. That's in US dollars, obviously, because it's only available in the US at the minute. And there is a Ubisoft channel announced, but not yet priced. And reportedly, that Ubisoft channel will include day one releases such as Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Watch Dogs Legion. It works on iOS, which is unusual compared to xCloud and Stadia. It works on iOS via the web, so you have to access it through a web browser, which is an interesting workaround. Maybe you need the controller to do that, because the controller can link up with the data center directly, which is an interesting little workaround they've got there. And we're expecting a lot of Twitch integration, Amazon-owned Twitch, so you'd expect those two things to be heavily tied. Ben, are you excited by Luna?
I was interested. I think excited is maybe too strong of a word right now. I think as we find out more about it, I'll probably be more excited. I was interested by the model of the channels, and I do keep reading that it's like Prime Video, and I thought I had Prime Video, and I don't remember it working subscribing to channels, so I'm not quite. I don't get the parity there, but
so yeah, with Prime Video you can subscribe. You subscribe to Prime Video, but then you can subscribe to additional sectors of Prime Video. Like you can subscribe to like the Warner Brothers bit of Prime Video and get all of their stuff.
Wow, today I learned. I didn't know you could do that.
You can make it more expensive. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's the maybe a response in some sense to Microsoft buying Bethesda. The next Battlefront, if you like, for content is going to be, not which console are you on necessarily, but which streaming service are you on. And Ubisoft throwing the hat in with Amazon is a big deal. You'd imagine that Ubisoft have probably caught several people streaming service-wise, and they've got their own thing in Uplay, which might evolve as well. But yeah, it's an interesting claim for Amazon to make, and it's further competition to the already beleaguered Google Stadia, which we'll talk about more later in the news.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Elsewhere, I'll go for it.
I was just to say, you mentioned about it being only available in the US, which is right, but I think it's also only available by is it invite at the moment? Like you either have to be invited or you have to apply for membership. I think
you have to ask for early access. You have to get on your knees and beg Jeff Bezos. Speaking of things that everyone's begging for, the Xbox Series X. Prototype versions of the Series X are in the hands of some tech reviewers, not us, because we're not big enough yet. Exactly. But some tech reviewers have had a chance to share their impressions this week, so an embargo's been lifted, not on any new games, but they've been able to talk about the UI, they've been able to talk about features like quick resume and loading times, and importantly, they've been able to talk about backwards compatibility. So they've been able to play games from the Xbox One, or even the 360 and original Xbox, and talk about their performance. Have you seen any of the impressions going around? I've seen some.
I actually haven't, so okay. If you let me know what you've seen, and I'll give my opinion on
well, it seems incredibly positive. I saw an interesting video with Jeff Backlar from CNET He did a chat with someone from GameSpot, and they talked about Quick Resume, and they really liked that feature. I'm not sure if Quick Resume really works with how I play, like the idea of like just pausing a game and then leaving it for a long period of time and then coming back and just having it instantly spring up again where I left it is obviously interesting, but I'm not sure I'd actually use it that much. And they were really impressed by the loading times, the comparison between loading things, the traditional hard drive and the new fancy SSD that's in the series consoles. Seems to be no slouch. Yeah, and that seems really impressive. Digital Foundry, who you will know if you're a nerd, do a lot of videos where they drill into pixel counts and frame rates, and they shared a frame rate test video of the Series X in backwards compatibility mode, which was really interesting actually, and really highlighted how just kind of the raw power of the Xbox Series X just kind of covers up or improves games that were maybe a bit awful on the One X. So the Xbox One X had games like Dead or Alive 6, which you could run in 4K, but would run badly. And like for a fighting game, running badly, variable frame rate makes it almost unplayable. So the game was borderline unplayable in that mode before, and now it works great. So it's interesting to see that kind of transformative effect that's having on certain things. Someone in the chat's asking, or Dan's in the chat asking, if I ever secured a pre-order. Nope, I haven't got a pre-order. I would still like one. If anyone works at Microsoft and hook me up with an all access, let me know. And yeah, well worth checking out those videos. Really interesting impressions. Staying in the land of Series X and S, in this case, the expandable storage price has been unveiled. So this is the Seagate Custom Nvm Ssd we talked about just then, how it improves load time significantly. So it's not just a regular SSD, it's a specific type of SSD, one that tends to be quite pricey. We've now heard that the Seagate one, which is the only one available at launch, is going to be £220 for 1 terabyte, which is a lot of money.
It is. It's nearly as expensive as the S.
It's no doubt a lot of money, yeah. It's worth noting that is kind of comparable to the price of these custom, these advanced SSDs on the market separately. It's a bit more expensive, but it's not a million miles away from the price that you would pay for, a non-licensed one. So I don't think they're being necessarily exploitative with this. I think there's just the reality of how much these things actually cost, and they just heavily subsidise the one that you get in the console. We're also expecting more variants in the future. They've committed to this in vague terms. So at the minute it's just that one terabyte option from Seagate only. They've hinted there'll be more sizes and more companies than just Seagate will be able to produce officially licensed Xbox hard drives in the near future.
Yeah, if anything, I think that makes the X to me now more appealing than the S. It was always going to be expensive because, as you say, that it's just what they cost. But now, if you're comparing the S to the X and you want all that extra storage, because obviously with the size of game downloads now, and you have to download all of them, how many you can fit on? I mean, 512 gig is huge. It's still a lot of space, but you can see how that quickly could get filled up. It's like, okay, well, I'll get an extra terabyte for 220 quid. If you're going to pay the 220 quid to get that, maybe you should just go ahead and get an X, which is, what was it, 450, 449, and get the terabyte off the bat. Obviously, with the S and a terabyte, you get more than a terabyte, but it feels like you might be better served just getting the X and then seeing if they release smaller ones you can buy.
Yeah, or cheaper ones. Over time, you'd expect those SSDs to come down in price.
Yeah, for me, it makes the X. I still haven't decided if I am going to get one. I've stopped even looking to try because it's just not going to happen right now. But I feel like now I would probably lean towards the X more than the S, where the S was. It's funny. The S was what hooked me. It's like, oh, maybe I will get an Xbox. And now I'm like
immediately upgraded. No, that's interesting, and you're absolutely right, because an S plus one of those cards, that's going to run you the same amount as a Series X. So why not go all in?
It'll actually cost you more.
Yeah, you're right. It will.
Quick math.
Yeah, good maths. Elsewhere, the story that won't die, at least not for another year or so, I imagine, is Apple versus Epic. If you've missed any of this, oh man, can I recap this? How long is this news segment?
You got 30 seconds, go.
Epic and Apple are fighting over the 30% pay cut that Apple takes over all in-app purchases. Epic originally put some code in Fortnite on iOS that circumvented that, leading to their removal from the App Store. And they've launched this legal challenge, which is being presided by Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers. I like her. I don't know if you've been following this still, but she is a no-nonsense judge, and she knows her stuff about the tech industry, which I really appreciate. So yeah, they had a hearing just recently, the most recent hearing, and she had strong words for both sides. I've actually got some quotes. I can just read some quotes from her ruling in some of this stuff. So she's saying, if we look at this plaintiff and industry, walled gardens have existed for decades. Nintendo has a walled garden, Sony has a walled garden, Microsoft has a walled garden. In this particular industry, what Apple is doing is not much different. It's hard to ignore the economics of the industry, which is what Epic is asking me to do. It also didn't go well for Epic when they essentially requested that Apple be forced to allow Fortnite back on the store in the short term, because Apple's response to that is, it can go back on the store, just take out the in-app purchases that don't pay us the 30% cut, which Epic are obviously reluctant to do. But in response to that, Judge Rogers was extremely harsh, and you've got to bear in mind, for a judge, judges have to be quite reserved. She said to Epic's counsel, "You were not forthright. You were told you couldn't do your own in-app purchasing option, and you did. You can try all you want, but you're not going to convince anybody that you have tried to have Apple approve of it. It's self-harm." Which is, not what Epic would have wanted. Elsewhere, though, there was some good news for Epic as part of this hearing, and for developers worldwide, because obviously the collateral damage in this discussion is potentially Unreal Engine, which obviously Epic owns and a lot of developers use, and it would be bad for everyone if Unreal Engine was in any way infringed or prevented from working on iOS. She did say that Apple's sky is falling down rhetoric on this topic is overblown, and there's little evidence that everything's going to explode because the Unreal Engine is allowed to operate. So she's kind of standing by her previous word that Unreal Engine should be protected, and not catch any flack from this particular case. And lastly, she suggested that the case should be put to a jury, so she was interested in actually having members of the public part of this process. But since then, both sides have actually requested that the case be tried without a jury. They would rather it be tried by a judge. Which is, fascinating development, and I'm sure there will be many more times where I have to be on the show talking about Apple versus Epic. I'm just going to get a law degree in my spare time. I want to talk about it all the time. But yeah, really interesting stuff. I mean, have you got any further opinions on this? We've talked about this before several times.
Yeah, I won't go too deep into it. But yeah, it's just a really difficult one. It's, at the end of the day, it's two massive companies essentially point scoring off each other. It doesn't benefit the gamers. I can see why Epic are saying, "Oh well, you're taking a huge cut off our revenue." Apple's retort is, "You're using our technology to do it, so we're entitled to a cut." What the judge has said about, you knowingly broke the rules is correct. That's, it's strong words, but it's not wrong. But I think basically what this has come down to is Epic have gone, we don't agree with 30%. We think it's wrong. We are gonna knowingly break it and see what happens, and we'll try and get it changed by defiance. And it looks like it's not going to work. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I said, it's two big companies point scoring off each other, and I think Dan said this the other week when he was talking about the only people who are losing really are, the players, because they just want to play the game, and now they can't on an iOS device because of this spat that's going on between the two. I don't think it's going to be resolved anytime soon. So yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about it again, but yeah, I can only see it going Apple's way at this point. What Epic then do, I'm not sure. I don't know whether they're too deep in now to just backtrack, or it'd be interesting to see where it goes. But yeah, it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
tune in next week for probably some more from that. Let's talk about something else other than billionaires and their petty squabbles. Speaking of people who are in kind of hot water, I guess, Cyberpunk developers CD Projekt Red are in the news this week for reversing their commitment to no mandatory crunch during production. So if you're not aware or not up to date with industry practices, crunch is a term that refers to extreme working conditions towards the end of a project, so working longer hours, oftentimes without pay, although I should note that in this case the crunch that's being enforced on staff is paid. Basically they're asking staff to work 6 days a week rather than the usual 5, but they will be paid. And the reason this is a big story, more so than most, because a lot of developers engage in crunch, is one, because they kind of promised not to do it, and they've kind of gone back on their word on that front. But also, CD Projekt Red publishing this themselves. They don't have any obligations to publishers, so it's surprising perhaps that they would put themselves through the ringer on this particular case when they could just delay Cyberpunk, which they've done several times already, and no one would be surprised by it. I wouldn't be surprised if they delay it again now, regardless. But yeah, interesting development, and obviously working conditions are a hot button topic in the industry at the minute. Everyone's thinking about it and making sure that people work in a safe and humane way. We've not talked about Sony much today. They've got some stuff going on with Spider-Man. I mean, this is so confusing, I'm not sure I can even explain it myself. I'm going to give it a try. So, Spider-Man Remastered, and this is the PlayStation 5 version of Spider-Man, which is a popular PlayStation 4 game from 2018. It's being updated for PlayStation 5 to include things like ray tracing and loading time improvements, all the same sort of stuff that we're getting next-gen upgrades. But it's not free, which is in contrast to the way Microsoft is operating in terms of giving away free upgrades. But also, it seems there's no way to actually buy it unless you buy the new game, which is Miles Morales. So if you buy the Ultimate Edition of Miles Morales, you get this remaster for free. If you don't buy the Ultimate Edition of Miles Morales, you just buy the regular edition of Miles Morales, then you have an option in the menu of Miles Morales to buy this remaster through there. So yeah, a little bit strange. Confusing.
That is strange. Yeah, even I was like, yeah, I'm with you, and then I lost you a bit.
It's
yeah, totally.
And it's it's like I say, opposed to the way that Microsoft is operating, and it's interesting seeing the kind of response to that. I think there's almost a sort of sense of entitlement about next gen upgrades now. That Microsoft have created this, like they've set the bar, perhaps at a point that's unreasonable for most studios to deal with, because it costs money to do these upgrades. You have to invest work and time into them. The fact that Microsoft's just giving them away for free makes things challenging. They've also unveiled, and this is, talk about a storm in a teacup on Twitter. They've recast Peter Parker in the remaster, which is, I don't remember anyone doing this before.
Why should there be any different to the films? Come on. If you don't do a new Spider-Man and recast Peter Parker, are you even doing another?
It's not necessarily. He will be in Miles Morales, but they're also. It's like they're updating. So the old Spider-Man will be replaced by the new Spider-Man. So if you're playing the PlayStation 5 version of Spider-Man from the PS4 days, he just looks different. It's a different guy. And obviously, some people obviously have got attached to that character. They like the way that he looks in the existing version. They're not happy that the face has changed. A lot of the people on Twitter are saying that the new one looks like Tom Holland. And
I did see that, yeah.
Is this a thing that Sony have maybe forced? Insomniac, the developers, are saying that it's absolutely not to do with that. They're saying it's about matching the motion capture work that Yuri Lowenthal did, who's the voice actor for the game as well. But the new one doesn't really look like him either. Doesn't look like either of them. So yeah, that's a strange one.
Yeah, it happens. I can see why people might not be happy with it, but I think storm in a teacup is a perfect way of describing it. It's, at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. But yeah, it's always interesting to gauge people's opinions on it, because to some people it is a big deal. So that's not downplaying it for anyone who is disappointed or not happy with it. But different things matter to different people, and it is really interesting, like what those views are, because that should have an impact on game development and decisions that are made. Ultimately, you're making them for the players. You're not making them for yourselves. They've said it's to do with the motion capture, so it sounds like it's a development choice that has been made to try and make the game better. No reason to believe that's not true, but if they're just changing it for other reasons, if enough players are unhappy about it, then then that's not a choice you should make, because you're making the game for the players. If it's to make the game better, fine, but ultimately, yeah, you're making games for players, so their opinions do matter. They matter more than anyone's.
So your advice is to acquiesce to every angry gamer on Twitter. Got it.
No. That's, like I said,
moving on.
If enough players are not happy about it, you need to listen to that. If it is 1,000 unhappy players on Twitter out of the 100,000 you've got playing, it's a shame they're annoyed, but you can't kowtow to everyone. But the point I'm making is you should listen to players. You shouldn't, not individual players. You should listen to the movement of where it's going and the overall sentiment of your fan base, because it's incredibly important.
You've seen both, I presume. You've seen the new Spider-Man and the old Spider-Man.
I've only actually seen the new Spider-Man.
What?
I haven't seen
You
the old one.
avoided the old one. I was going to ask you.
I'm not
Snap decision. Which Peter Parker do you choose? If they put a toggle in and let you pick, which one would you go for?
Tobey Maguire version.
Nope, you can't have that. Absolutely not.
I'm going to say the new one because I haven't seen the old one, so it's not going to matter to me.
Okay. I do prefer the old one. I think the old one is better, but we'll see.
Oh, you're the angry guy on Twitter.
Yeah, it's just me and my army of bots.
Yeah.
Just before the stream went live, there was a Nintendo event, and they've announced the new character for Super Smash Bros. It's not Waluigi again. Will Waluigi ever get his day? Probably not. It's Minecraft Steve, the blocky dude from Minecraft. Yeah, why
I'm sure
not?
Minecraft fans will be happy about that. Yeah. People like Minecraft, so
they do.
Sure. I'd rather see Waluigi, but I'm just an angry guy on Twitter.
Yeah. A last story for today then. The new Google Chromecast won't support Stadia at launch. So it is expected that support will be added in the first half of 2021. But yeah, I mean that's it's an extremely strange scenario. You would think that Google would have sorted that out and wouldn't launch a Chromecast without support for this platform that they claim to be heavily invested in. I don't know. Maybe if you're being cynical, maybe that's a sign that Google's not that invested in Stadia's performance and is maybe already starting to move on to other things, as Google is wont to do with its products and services.
Which is interesting, as we've already talked about earlier, how the competition is hotting up now. We talked about it last couple of weeks with the Microsoft stuff, and now this week with Amazon's. Maybe they're deciding we can't be bothered. Not can't be bothered, but we don't want to compete in this area. I mean, Google are so rich they can decide they can't be bothered to do things, but maybe it's not worth their investment.
Yeah,
we'll see where it goes, but it definitely is an odd one for a Google product to come out not supporting a Google product.
Yeah, it really is. Hopefully they'll get that sorted out, and hopefully Stadia gets past its what you might call launch problems and becomes a fully fledged service, because competition is good for everyone and good for the industry. Okay, we're going to switch to a pre-recorded segment. This is a clip of Among Us, the popular game which has taken over Twitch. There's some news about Among Us as well embedded in the clip, so stay tuned to watch that. And stick around, because after this, Ben will be gone and Dan will be here to talk about engaging gamers with authenticity, so we'll be right back. This is Among Us, available for Steam and PC. And mobile, I should say. Steam and PC. They're the same thing. This game has taken Twitch by storm. Actually came out a while ago, but has recently enjoyed a massive surge in popularity. You are one of several people on board a space station, and you're going to try and do some tasks to keep the ship going. But it turns out not everyone is as they seem. There are usually several imposters in the mix who will be sabotaging the ship and also murdering you. It's a social game to be played with friends, but you're not supposed to talk during the play phase. There are certain meetings when you're allowed to talk, and that's when the kind of social element really kicks in and you start to accuse each other of being the imposter and being a murderer. Yeah, the game's got a fun aesthetic. This is some footage I captured recently. This was one of my first times playing the game, so apologies if I'm not very good at it. You can see a task here. This one's pretty simple. Cleaning the O2 filter. It's on that list on the left-hand side of tasks that I have. And if the crew complete all the tasks that everyone has, then you win. That's dead body reported. Time for a meeting.
I saw light green kill someone. Bottom left of cafeteria, right next to the satellite dish.
So which light green is it? So...
Light green,
Yep.
I was with which color? I don't know.
I left cafeteria and Hats and Tove were standing right next to each other, doing the electrical thingy. So I can confirm that they were together when I left.
After that, he went down to the satellite, and I was still up.
I just want to know that Splenda faked the very first task, the launch pad one. Because I was doing it too, and then once I finished it, it only went up for one person.
The launchpad one?
Yeah, the very first one in the area.
I had one there too, where you press a button and wait literally 1.5 minutes.
Yeah, same. Then I had the one on the panel opposite.
You
just come back,
leave it going.
and it goes up.
The same.
Yeah, it only goes up when you come back.
I don't know who to vote for.
I'm voting for light green, Haps.
Haps, okay, I'll go for that. You convinced me.
Down, just vote.
Wow.
That's how easily swayed I am.
How easily swayed all of us are.
Bones or skipped, just saying.
As you can see, our good friend Hapsnurker was ejected there. The crowd suspect him of being the imposter. And life goes on. We continue with the same list of tasks. This game's in the news this week because the developers, Inner Sloth, have announced that, contrary to prior announcements, where they had announced that... the reactor's going off. Everyone rushes to reactor, because if the reactor goes off, everyone dies. They announced that basically Among Us 2, the sequel to this game, is cancelled, because this game's now so popular they'd rather invest that time and effort in making improvements to this game, which I think is fair enough. You can see us all scrambling towards the reactor here. It looks like it was dealt with. I happen to have a couple of tasks in the area, and you can see the tasks are all mini-game-esque. None of them are particularly taxing, but the crucial thing they do is they often take your focus away. You can't see what's happening around you, so you can't see if someone's sneaking up behind you. And there's a lot of paranoia involved in the game. I think we're coming up on a second dead body here. As soon as a dead body is found, it can be reported, and it starts that meeting process. Here we go.
It's up right by the greenhouse area, and then there's Bonesaw just walking right by.
Saw the body too. So
Yeah.
what did you report it to?
Wait, who else saw the body?
I went up and saw the body, I hit the report button, and then as I was getting ready to do it, Bonesaw just sort of walks on by from the next room over, like, you know, casually. As in
Someone else
he
said they saw the body, like other than you.
No.
Well,
No,
I believe you, but
Yeah, no, it's just Bonesaw, and he was just chilling there, like, coming out from a room there's no way he could have been in without seeing the body.
What is your defense? Cheats.
damn,
I was hacked. Couldn't see it.
It was my brother.
ransomware.
Oh dear.
Whoop.
I knew it just from...
So the mechanics of Among Us are similar to party games you may have played, such as Werewolf and Mafia, and also similar to an Etch Play favourite called Push the Button, which is available in one of the Jackbox party packs. But the game's really taken off. It's essentially dethroned some of the heaviest hitters on Twitch. This is currently more popular in streaming terms than Fortnite. If you log on to Twitch, pretty much any time of day, you'll see people playing this. This is where I die. I see you, Splendor. I see you. I just wanted to stick around till I was dead, just to highlight the fact that after you're dead, as a crewmate, you come back as a ghost, which means you can still complete most tasks. There are certain tasks you can't do as a ghost, like I can't solve this reactor malfunction, but I can complete my initial tasks and still help the crew to win. Yeah, it's a really interesting game. It's free to play on mobile and only $3.99 on Steam. So get some friends together and give it a play. Check out the game everyone's talking about. This is Among Us, and I'm going to throw back to the live show. See ya. That was Among Us, being played on PC. It's also available on phones. Give it a try. It is a lot of fun. And I'm joined now by Dan Thomas.
Hello.
Welcome back to the show, Dan. Dan's here to talk about a blog post which is going live tomorrow. If you're not familiar with Etch and the business briefings we do, so every week we do a business briefing about a specific industry, and every now and then we do a gaming one, which we obviously like to get involved with in the play team. And Dan's written this week's one, so I thought I'd have him on the show to talk about what he's written.
Yeah, so we'll just go through all the spoilers and
yeah, don't even bother reading the blog. Just watch this, and then you got the gist of it.
I mean, reading. That's so last year, and it's all about the video now.
It's a tantalising tease of a blog that you'll be able to find on etchuk.com tomorrow.
There we go. Yes. So yeah, so we're talking games audiences, specifically how the kind of thoughts around engaging with games audiences. It's obviously a desirable proposition, and it was kind of inspired by some recent activities we talked about on the show last week. Was the Burger King campaign, which is a campaign ran by Burger King. I think it was orchestrated by Ogilvy, who have also previously done a slightly less well-received campaign. They're a huge marketing agency, so they've got different teams in different countries, and yeah, kind of I guess the gist of what we're talking about is how to approach an audience and perhaps try and be genuine and be authentic in doing so. So yeah, I've got a few stats we can kick off with, might be of interest. So
sure. Yeah.
In the UK, 86% of 16 to 69-year-olds have played a video game in the last year. So 86% of people, I think, is a fair a fair way to cover that. And actually, of that, 54% play on most days. So
and all of that's Among Us.
yeah, 99% of that is playing Among Us in the past couple of weeks. So yeah, I guess the thoughts behind this post are: this is a big industry. We know that global audience, 2.7 billion people, spending $160 billion per year. So yes, there are a lot of interested parties taking a very keen interest in this sector, and it's not unusual to hear that, like, oh, how can we appeal to gamers? How can we get presence to gamers? And as we just discussed, it's kind of a bit of a disingenuous query, because gamers are just people, and to view them as a stereotype or a demographic is just becoming less and less relevant, because it's everyone. So yes, of course, how do we advertise our product to everyone? And yeah, kind of the worst thing that you can do is sit at your desk, do an hour of reading, go, oh, this is a big audience. Oh, they like memes. Here's a meme with our brand, and just throwing it out there, because that's really not going to be well received. It's not very effective. It's not very authentic. And yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's almost the word gamer has got multiple meanings, and I'm glad that we're discussing this on the internet, where no one will have any strong feelings about this other than us. But gamers is an all-encapsulating term for lots of types of people nowadays. But there is also, and you talk about this in your blog, I've been fortunate enough to read it in advance. There are a subset of gamers who take that identity more seriously. They consider it part of their core identity, and they're maybe the ones that you have to not worry about as such, but you have to treat with a little bit more care because they're a little bit more savvy, a little bit more stubborn. I mean, every news segment we just talked then about Spider-Man's face and how that's upset people. They are as a demographic, it is potentially dynamite.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is a huge audience. It is an extremely passionate audience, and yeah, you don't want to get it wrong, and you don't want to make assumptions or go for the low hanging fruit, because you will get called out for those kind of behaviors. And like I say, gamer, there is a subset of game playing audience who self-describe themselves as gamers, and that means a lot to them. And equally, as you say, there are perhaps less desirable aspects of gamer culture, and you want to be mindful of that. And there are certain sub communities that you want to try and avoid, and certainly I guess avoid the fiery conversations and opinions. People be familiar with topics such as Gamergate, and you really can't go wading into this arena without all of the information, all the understanding of these communities and these sub communities, and that's exactly what they are, because we are talking about a culture and subcultures, and you can't just treat it all with one broad brush. They say the term gamer is, I mean, many people in the industry kind of distance themselves from it. Many people who enjoy games distance themselves from it because you have the sub communities that are more toxic or more inflammatory, and it's such a broad spectrum that you just can't use a catch-all term gamer and have any value in that kind of audience that you're trying to describe.
Yeah, it means different things to different people, which is challenging. And I think one of the interesting things about the blog that you've written, and why I encourage people to check it out tomorrow, is that it's kind of about the way that you navigate that successfully is with authenticity. It's about being genuine, because all types of gamers, whether they self-identify as a very specific type of gamer or if they just happen to be somebody who plays and enjoys games, they can recognise genuineness. They recognise realness in something that they're being sold, or an influencer that they're watching, or a story that a marketer is trying to share with them. They're quite savvy in that regard.
Absolutely, and I think you've kind of got to the real purpose of, if you want to have a presence within this sector, you do not go in with the mindset of how do I get the attention of gamers. That's not the approach. What you need to go in is say, how can I contribute value to this community? And you need to understand what you mean by this community. What is the subset that you're targeting, and who are the influencers? What are the likes? What are the hot topics? What are the things to avoid? And it is actually about becoming a part of that community, and not just treating them as an audience to bump your numbers up, but you've got to offer genuine value, because they will, as with any community and any audience, they will be receptive to new entities that offer genuine value. So we talk a lot about KFC, who have done a really good job at engaging with that, because they've become a part of it, and they've given genuine value and entertainment, which is it's a huge consideration to the audience. Is this entertaining, or is this a cash grab? Entertain me, that's fine. You can that's of value to me. If I feel I'm being exploited or leveraged, no way, I'm going to back out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say. I mean, people think about sometimes there's a trap of thinking that marketing is exclusively a one-way thing, that it's something that companies want to do and that people don't enjoy at all. But actually, especially in a space like games where there's so much passion for the product, people who play games do like discovering a new game that they really enjoy. They do like discovering a great accessory that they would want to buy. Like they're actually quite open to that. It's just about how you pitch it, but it's about tone of voice, and it's about authenticity, like you say. And I think your blog's really good at articulating some of that, and I definitely encourage people to read it. Do you have any more stats or snippets you wanted to share?
I think
as a tease.
No, I think kind of what we're saying about authenticity. It's actually, and going all the way back to what we were saying about at the beginning, that 86% of people have played a game in the last year, 54% most days. There's a very good chance that your team, your company, your business is made up of gamers or games players. You don't need to force this. And actually, when you're trying to be authentic and you're trying to add value, look, you don't need to pretend, because there will be people who are genuinely interested, and you can use those people, and that will make their job more interesting, and they'll be more enthusiastic and more passionate, and it will feel more real. I think if you're thinking, I need to get in front of these audiences, I don't really care about this, it's probably not the campaign for you, and you want to look around the organization and look for people who are who are already in that space, and there will be people, because as we said, kind of we're talking about a significant proportion of people are part of this target audience.
Yeah. And if you want to read that blog, like I say, it goes live tomorrow, etchuk.com. It'll be on the homepage somewhere, probably, right?
I'm sure it will.
Sounds like the sort of thing we would do. But yeah,
it's great. It's great when they let us loose on the all-important business briefing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Come back tomorrow, etchuk.com. Check out that blog. Let us know your thoughts. And I think that brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for joining me, Dan.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
That's okay. And thanks to Ben Joy for his insights on the news earlier. That's it for another week. We'll be back next week. If you like the show, please remember to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or follow if you are watching live on Twitch. Live fans are my favourite. You guys are the best. People who watch on YouTube, you're alright, but come check it out live. It's more fun live.
Validate us.
Yeah, validate us. Come on back. Make sure you're subscribed in whatever form you feel comfortable with, and we will see you next Thursday at 4 PM for the Etch Play Weekly Live Show. I'll tell you what I'll do, as Dan liked so much, I'll play us out with the beats from the beginning of the stream. You remember?
Nice. Very good.
We'll see you guys next time.